This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 737 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Today's tip is brought to you by EquestrianCollections.com, the whole universe of equestrian shopping delivered right to your door. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an excerpt from the Horses in the Morning Show, episode number 571. Dr. Gordon Chang from Omega Alpha joins the Hit'em Gang for a brief yet thorough chat about inflammation. But first, let's hear from today's sponsor.
Hi, Glenn here, founder of the Horse Radio Network, and I am with Debbie from Equestrian Collections with Equestrian Collections Product of the Week.
This time of year, the mares, the early foals are beginning to arrive. The thoroughbreds that are specifically bred to be foaling in January, sometimes the mares that caught a little bit later in the year, they're foaling now during a cold time of the year. And so you want to have on hand a foal blanket so that if you do have a foal in the cold, that you have something you can wrap him up in. The one I'm featuring this week is the WeatherBeeta Growing Foal Stable Blanket. And I featured this one because it is so adjustable. It adjusts from 42 inches to 57 inches, which is a lot. So you only need the one. It's 180 grams of polyfill, which is a little bit less than medium weight, so it's really good. It's a stable blanket, so it's for when they're inside. So it's really good for, a little bit more than lightweight and a little bit less than medium weight. So it's really good for that. And it's a 300 denier, so it's really strong. And it comes from WeatherBeeta, which is, of course, a very well-known brand. So I thought that this would be a really good thing for those of you who are expecting winter foals to maybe consider keeping on hand. And it's only $50, so it's a real good safety feature for early spring foaling.
And you can find them at EquestrianCollections.com. Just search for WeatherBeeta Growing Foal Stable Blanket at EquestrianCollections.com.
And the famous Dr. Chang, who is the mastermind, the evil genius behind everything Omega Alpha. Good morning.
Good morning, Jamie. Thank you for that wonderful intro. But I don't know about the mastermind part,
Wait a minute. He's not denying the evil part.
Well, the evil, that goes with the territory. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've met you, and you're anything but evil, so it's all good.
You haven't seen my evil side yet. Okay.
So how's it going? What are we talking about today?
Well, today I think I'd like to talk a little bit about inflammation. Now, inflammation is a huge topic, and we really can't do justice on it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever time we have allotted here. However, I'd just like to bring up the point about inflammation and why it's important that we have inflammation, and more importantly, why is it important that we should control inflammation, all right? Now, the reason we have inflammation is an important tool for the body to help rebuild damaged muscle. It's an important tool in the body to help fight off infections, right, and a whole myriad of other things that with inflammation. The problem with inflammation, though, is that if you look at the physiology of inflammation, there are many feedback control loops that help control inflammation. But many times these feedback loops do not control inflammation well, and inflammation just goes on and on and on. The problem when that happens is that it inhibits control of repair. So think of inflammation as if you're trying to build a wall. Inflammation is the guy. You have workers who put the bricks up on the wall and stack them up. Inflammation is the guy that comes with a chisel and starts knocking out the bricks at the bottom of the wall, right? Okay. That's what inflammation does, right? So if you think you have chronic inflammation all the time, the guy's bringing it up the wall, but then you have the guy coming and knocking out the bricks. The wall never gets strong enough. So it's a constant chasing this thing down to get it repaired. That's why many of the equine athletes that you see, if you see them limping and so on, and sometimes you say to them, well, there's nothing wrong. Why are they limping? It's because of inflammation, right? Sometimes there is a reason for them to be limping because they tore a muscle or something like that. But if you don't control the inflammation, the repair mechanism is inhibited, so it takes longer to repair. That's
now,
why when...
Question for you, if I may jump in. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a horse, my event horse. He needs a lot of help with one of his hocks. He's an ex-race horse. He was run into the ground, and I'm lucky he's still competing now. And when he comes out of the stall and I start working him, he's always a little bit lame on his right hind because of that hock. And he works out of it, and it's just like he's a little bit stiff. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit of arthritis, but is arthritis inflammation? Are those different?
Arthritis is a result of inflammation, right? The reason when you start working him, if you notice, he probably frees up a little bit, and you find that it's almost like you work the kinks out. All right,
yeah,
and he's
exactly.
And then he's sort of like he's fine and he's not bothered anymore. Well, that's because when he's resting, here's what happens: the products of inflammation just pools in that general area. So once you start working him, the blood supply comes in and starts washing it out from that area and dilutes it into the general circulation. And when that happens, it's sort of he's in less pain and he frees it up, so he's able to do things better for you. But because of that chronic inflammation that keeps on going, every time he's resting and he's not moving that area, right, it gives it a chance to build up inflammation or the products of inflammation in that area. So that's why it's important to control inflammation. In the human world, if we look at it, there's a theory that a lot of reasons people get heart attacks and so on, and building up of plaques in the bloodstream is because there's chronic inflammation going on at the level of the veins and of the arteries. So when we say that, we're talking about in the tissue of the veins and the arteries itself. And then because there's chronic inflammation, what the body's trying to do now is to try and repair that. So it puts down a lot of white cells, the white cells come and attack it, etc. Now, I want to move back to the equine world now. So when you have a horse that's a little bit stiff, etc., the stiffness is because of the products of inflammation. So what you should try to do is to basically try to control the product, try to control inflammation. The problem with trying to control inflammation, though, is that most of the modern medicines that's available for the pharmaceuticals out there is very hard on the stomach. All right, the first line is the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. And to get what we call a pharmacological dose into you, it is very, it can cause ulcers in a lot of the horse's stomach. So you pick your poison, either the gimpiness and the stiffness or the ulcers in the stomach. Right. Fortunately, there's a whole bunch of different herbal solutions that you can use that will help fight inflammation. All right, it'll help control that inflammatory process.
Now,
right?
I'd like to point out that, bute, of course, is kind of one, and I'll say it too, bute, obviously, is one of the standard things that you give a horse when it has inflammation somewhere. And, I'm to the point now where this same horse I'm talking about, I don't want to give him bute because he has chronic ulcers. I've treated him for ulcers. He's already been on, the first thing to turn him around was your product of Biotic 8 to kind of get the bacteria in his gut in a healthier place. But I worked so hard to get his stomach and his pretty much his whole digestive tract back in working order that I cringe when they say give him bute. And anytime your vet comes out, the first thing they say is, oh, just give him a week in the stall and 2 grams of bute twice a day. And I'm like, oh, first of all, if I left my horse in the stall for a week, he would kill me. Second of all, he's going to have ulcers from all the bute. And that just seems to be the first thing that the vets go to is the bute and stall rest. And do you have something else that you could use as opposed to bute?
That's right. We have a product which we call anti-flam. All right, anti-inflam is loaded with specific anti-inflammatory herbs that have an anti-inflammatory effect, and we find it works very well with a lot of horses for any type of lameness issues, laminitis type issues, navicular type issues, anything to do with the feet, all right? And in general, in our hands, we've used it in a lot of situations with people with things like stiff muscles, stiff neck, all those type of things. It works really, really well for those, right? Now, I want to clarify something what you said with Butte. There's a time and a place for everything. And there are certain times, whether you like it or not, you got to use Butte because it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. So if your horse was to fall and you see some major swelling somewhere, something like that, Butte is not a bad thing. It'll bring that swelling down. It'll control that inflammation. The problem with Butte, you can't use it forever, meaning on an ongoing basis, right? Otherwise, as you said, you'll have major problems with the stomach, right? With the ulcers in the stomach. So this is the product I was just talking about is a good alternative to use. And again, nothing in their tests. If you were to use it, you get results fairly quickly, meaning that you don't have to use it for 6 months before you say, oh, it's working, right?
Right.
Most people see results within about a week or so or less, right?
Wow.
And so they know it works.
Wow. So that fast you can see some results.
Yeah.
So what is it to kind of get a little more involved in the science? I'm sorry if anybody's listening and this is boring you, but I love this stuff. How does it work? How does it go into the system and herbally say, go to this place and take out the inflammation?
Well, basically, I mean, okay, one of the things that we do know, when we do the liquid extracts, okay, because you don't have to digest it out, it's already, all the active ingredients are already in the liquid. So all the horse has to do now is to absorb it. Absorption is one of the easiest things for the horses to do. Once it's there, they can absorb it. They have a hard time digesting it out, but once it's there, it's easy to absorb. Once it's absorbed, one of the things that it will do, as an anti-inflammatory, one of the things that it has antioxidant properties, so it inhibits what's called free radical damage, right? Free radical damage is one of those things that can cause inflammation. Inflammation is a process where, if you think about it, if you have an infection or damage, here's what happens in a physiological sense. What happens is the blood rushes to that area, the white blood cells get activated. Once the white blood cells get activated, and the reason they activate the white blood cells is the white blood cells come in and they're loaded with free radicals, they're loaded with enzymes and so on. And these things just come and they chew up, they attack the bacteria, or if you have damaged tissue, it just chews it up. When it chews it up, you have the products of chewing up these bacteria and the damaged tissue, etc., causes is a chemical signal for more white cells to come. It says, hey guys, we need help. So it gets more and more coming in. So you can see it's a positive cycle. You attract more white cells. Now on the flip side, there's some mechanisms which will help if you keep fluid moving, it'll help wash it out of that specific area and goes into the general circulation. So that dilutes the chemical signal. Also, there are specific mechanisms in there which inhibit that response, right? As I said, though, but if it's ongoing and you have chronic inflammation, that's when you need the help with the anti-inflammatories, right? And the anti-inflammatories really, really do help to help control that inflammation process. And if you can control the inflammation process, you increase the speed of healing. And that's a take-home message, to increase the speed of healing.
Okay. So when we give these products to these horses, we all know that Butte can come in a powder form and injectable form, anything. I believe that Omega Alpha, everything comes in a liquid form, most everything. And so is this another liquid? Can you put it on top of the feed? And my second question is, when you open the container, because I have some other products too that I hope are still good. But when you open the container, how long does it last? Is this something you're going to give every day for a while, or you can give some of for a while and then some of later?
It depends on what you're doing with your horse. If you are in competition during competition season, you know you're aggravating the muscles quite a bit. It's like anything else. Even all athletes need a little bit of rest and relaxation, right? You can only train them so much, right? But during competition, if they're out, like in the racing world, if you're jogging them every day, and you exercising them every day, what's happening is that you're tearing muscle fibers every day. And one of the things with tearing the muscle fibers, the body repairs it, makes it stronger, right? That's why you tear. However, that tearing of the muscle fiber causes inflammation. If you can control that inflammation, it heals faster, heals better. So for horses like that, you probably use it on a daily basis. For your backyard horse owner, right, who has or your horse owner who only uses his horse on the weekends and so on, if you have a stiff horse, you would use it until you see the stiffness go away, and I'd continue for another week, and then afterwards you can just put it away. Now, if you keep the product refrigerated, it extends the shelf life, right? It'll probably be good for about 3 to 6 months in the fridge, right? Once it's open.
Okay.
Right, but most of the product we sell, it comes in different sizes, so you shouldn't be buying. If you're only going to use 1 liter, you shouldn't be buying 4 liters, right?
Okay.
And you just keep it in the fridge, and it'll last.
Okay. Good to know. So, and can you pour this over the food, or is this the dosing syringe?
Yeah, you can pour it over the food. The only reason I like dosing syringes because if I use a dosing syringe, I know he gets all. If you put it over the food, it's hit and miss, especially if it's a liquid and you're feeding him grain and it leaks between the kernels of grain and it goes all the way to the bottom of the bucket. So unless your horse is one of those that licks the bottom of the bucket, you might leave a bit of it behind, right? So I mean, just depends on your horse and what kind of eater he is.
Fortunately, pretty much all my horses lick the bottom of the bucket, and
they inhale.
And yeah, when I go to dosing syringe, they goes all the way down to my armpit. So I do appreciate the fact that you can put it in the food. That's fantastic. Well, Dr. Chang, where can everybody find these products?
Well, they're available in many different tack stores now. Some of the online stores, you'll see them there. You can always, if you go on our website, OmegaAlphaEquine.com, you'll have a list of all of the stores in the U.S. that carry the product.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chang.
And by the way,
appreciate it.
And I was just going to say, by the way, this month, I did get it right.
You did? I'm very proud of you. I thought I'd ask you again to see if you'd read up.
Well, there you go. To listen to more tips on horse health, just go to horsetipdaily.com and go to the topics drop-down menu on the left. If you just can't get enough of the Hit'em Gang putting in their 2 cents on all topics horse, you can tune into the Horses in the Morning show at horsesinthemorning.com. Please stop by the Horse Tip Daily Facebook page and let us know what you think of the tips you hear on the show. It's also a great place to tell us about topics you'd like to hear us cover on the show. You can subscribe to all the great shows on the Horse Radio Network through iTunes or Zune and get your horse podcasts automatically downloaded to your iPod, Zune, or MP3 player. You can also listen to the shows right on Facebook. The player's right there every day. I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, go ride your horse! The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.